biggest issues plaguing modern men is that the vast majority of them lack a tribe of other virtuous, trustworthy, masculine men who gather for the sole purpose of improving themselves and their lives on a daily basis. Most men simply float through space, working a dead-end job, only to go home to a nagging wife or girlfriend that doesn't respect them. Their friend circles are nothing but fat, low testosterone losers who are more concerned with what sports teams are playing this weekend and what bar they're going to watch the game at. If these men are lucky enough to unplug from the comforting lies that modern society sells them and decide they want more out of life, they look around and realize they need to get into a better room. That's where a private community of men chasing excellence comes in. Men in our community have all committed to being the best versions of themselves that they can possibly be. They willingly run toward challenges, knowing that pushing themselves out of their comfort zones is the key to unlocking their true potential as men. If you're ready to take control of your life back and curate a network of successful and knowledgeable men, now is the time to seize the opportunity.
All right, guys, welcome back. We're doing another Playing With podcast. I've got Rob Moore with me today. He should be a familiar face. He's been on the internets for a while and dispensed some good wisdom. I was also on his podcast a few years ago and really enjoyed talking to you. And I thought that you're one of the better interviewers out there, if I can put it that way. You're asked some very thought-provoking questions. How you doing today, man?
Really good, and thanks for having me.
Yeah, over in the UK. Got a bunch of notes over here, but I like to freestyle a lot of this and just sort of go back and forth on whatever, seems like an interesting rabbit hole to dive down. I wanted to ask you first about your collab with Andrew and Bonnie Blue. That was a very interesting room to be in, I guess, for you. I noticed a few times while you had the clan sitting there going back and forth, you almost bit your tongue a little bit just to sort of stay out of it and let them, do the best that they could. How did you put that one together?
So Bonnie Blue was cancelled off of OnlyFans. She had this stunt she was going to pull, one of her marketing things for her brand and her specific type of product that she offers. And I don't believe that people should be cancelled or silenced or censored unless they break the law. That's my view. And I've had many people on my show who've been cancelled, and I've taken shit for having them on my show. But I would want someone to support me if I'd been unfairly cancelled, or if I was supposed to be innocent until proven guilty. My show's called Disruptors. So, it tends to be that people who get cancelled are disruptors or have been disrupted. So she was cancelled from OnlyFans. She was cancelled from Instagram. So they approached me and they said, a lot of people in her community are calling her the female Andrew Tate. They obviously know I've, done some content, quite a lot of content with Andrew, and they wanted me to be the guy that sat between them and interviewed both of them. So then I wasn't sure if I wanted to do it, and I wasn't sure if Andrew would want to do it. I messaged Andrew, and the deal was done very quickly, and we were out to Romania kind of before we could blink. It kind of blew up. I mean, YouTube tried to shut it down, but kind of didn't really succeed. It kind of blew up, and I got some shit for it, but that's life.
What was the worst that you took for that? What kind of shit did you take for it?
Well, some people close to me didn't like the fact that I did it.
That you platformed them.
Sorry?
That you platformed them.
Okay, so I run, I have a property portfolio of quite a lot of properties, 345 units we have. I have a training business here in the UK, which maybe is 22 million in sales we'll probably do this year. That's kind of like 20 to 25 million we normally do. So some people on my board or some people close to me would be like, well, Rob, is that good for the brand relationship? High paying clients going to pay if Andrew Tate and the Bonnie Blue are the types of people that come on your show. I get that, and I have a financial and fiduciary responsibility to my business and my brands, and responsibility to my board. But it's an independent show. It's strategically an independent brand, and it's called Disruptors. So this was the kind of like paradox I'm in. Then you've got the third paradox, which is I'm the interviewer sat in the middle, and I'm just doing my job. So I took some heat from people close to me. I didn't really consult anyone. I just went and did it because, one, it happened so fast. It really did happen fast. It was voicemail, done. I kind of thrive like that, Rich. You love driving cars. You don't think consciously when you're driving a car fast. You're just in your instinct. And when you're one and connected with the car. Well, like I was in my instinct setting this up, and I was in Romania, and then I'm coming back thinking, shit, what's my wife going to think? What's my board going to think? Or all of this. Because I can take 100,000 haters, Rich. I honestly don't care. But, the people close to me, they're important to me. So, yeah, there was those dynamics going on, but that's how it happened.
What did Bonnie get canceled for? I think we all know what Andrew got canceled for.
Yeah. Bonnie was cancelled from OnlyFans and Instagram because she planned to go in a glass box and let loads of guys come and watch and come in and, do the thing to her. So as far as I'm concerned, if that's not breaking the law and that's a plan and it's not even happened, I don't know. I mean, OnlyFans isn't OnlyFans the place where they go. So I don't know if I agree with that or not, but anyway, that's why they cancelled her.
Yeah, I don't know that stunts that are not breaking any laws should be a cancelable offense. It doesn't seem right. I mean, you could put yourself in a barrel and go over Niagara Falls, and that's illegal, but they'd still air it. I don't think they would cancel you for something like that. So it's and it seems like that's a bridge too far for them. It's like, putting her in a glass box is a bridge too far, but 1,000 or 2,000 guys in a day or whatever their record is, going back and forth is totally fine. A glass box is a bridge too far for them. I find that interesting. How do you find Andrew? I'm curious as to your take on him, because I've talked to him a few times. I've had him on a few podcasts and we've talked privately more so about cars and exotics. So I'm just wondering what your take on a guy like Andrew Tate is.
I think he's a very underrated orator. I think he's a very good speaker. I think he's probably one of the best marketers living alive at the moment. I think like Donald Trump is an amazing marketer. As an entrepreneur and a business owner, I can see these traits in these people that maybe other people who can't. I think he has very strong volition. Some of the things he says are contradictions. For example, on my show, he said, well, if I've got 20 women on a boat, they're just there with me on the boat, and I'll just like that they're that kind of woman, and I'm not going to marry that kind of woman. And sort of made out that they're just girls he would just sleep with but not marry. And then a bit later on, he said, oh, I just have them on the boat. I don't sleep with them. I just have them there on the boat so I can, and I work on my laptop. So, I do think there are some potential contradictions there. But then if I'd been on about 10,000 podcasts, I imagine the odd contradiction would come out. I think he's a very good storyteller. I think he probably is quite misunderstood, because I think him and Tristan do give quite a lot back. I think he should have a fair trial, and I don't think it's actually going to be possible for him to have one now. I think his attitude to sort of fitness and fighting is good. I've only had one fight, Rich, and I had it kind of, I suppose in part because of a conversation I had with Andrew. But I've been training ever since. I do my boxing about 4 times a week. I have ever since, and that's been really good for me. I've seen him spar with a few people, and I think he's too rough. And I don't think you should go beat up people who are, really beginning. I don't think that that's how you mentor people. So there's some things I don't agree with, and there's many things that I do. He's always been good to me. So yeah, there's some thoughts.
Who inspired you to get into boxing?
Well, I got called out for a fight.
Did you?
So someone who's sort of in my industry in the UK, not as big as us, but he called me out for a fight. And I just immediately thought, yeah, I'm going to do this because it's not something I've done. And it just, a bit like how I brokered the Bonnie Blue Andrew Tate deal, I just thought this is something new. I just kind of like felt on the instinct of it. So I accepted it. We had a 50 grand bet which turned into 100, then turned into 200. At the time, he was, I think, 30 kilos heavier than me. We ended up fighting. He was 20 kilos heavier than me. We put 1,800 people in a room. We raised £250,000 for charity. We put on a better show than 9 out of 10 boxing fights you'll see. Certainly better show than Jake Paul and all of that stuff. He lost a lot of weight and he's boxed since. So I think he'll credit me as part of that journey. It was, I'd kind of got myself a bit out of shape before that, Rich. And Andrew was the guy that's like, you've got to take your fitness really seriously. And obviously fighting is one of the best ways to get fit. I mean, rowing, fighting, there aren't many other things that are really good for your fitness. And yeah, since then I've kept it up.
Yeah, I started boxing during the pandemic because everything closed here except for my dojo, and he decided to stay open and backdoor people in, which is fine. But I had a fight a few years ago, first one after 3.5 years of training, and I thought it was great. I loved it, but it's a young man's sport. I mean, you can't go around getting clocked in the head over and over again doing stuff like that. But I think it's certainly a skill that's worthwhile learning. And I mean, combat is useful at some point in life. You know, it's like you're going to be called upon as a man at some point to defend yourself, your family, people that you care about something, and knowing how to throw hands, I think, is a good skill to have. So tip my hat to you. I didn't know that you did that. Who was the fight with?
So there's a chap in the UK called Samuel Leeds who has a property training business, and he's a larger than life character. He's quite mouthy. He likes to sort of attack people who are a bit bigger than him. I think some people do that as a brand strategy. But I felt, because I had about 10 of my sales guys on the undercard against 10 of his sales guys, and they all did great, and put on some really good fights. So yeah, it was a great experience. And Rich, something that you may ask me later or not, but I need to say it, like, the UK's in a bad way, and some guy who's 25, who's a father, got murdered pretty much outside Harrods in London for his Rolex. And these are not nice times. And that's actually one, there's another kind of training I do, which is different to boxing, which is much more, for protecting myself. But I think you probably now have to think seriously about either moving to a village, in the middle of nowhere where an animal is your biggest threat, or you probably do have to take seriously, if you're a father, raising your children to look after themselves, your son certainly. Or doing it yourself. I'm 46, so I don't spar anymore, Rich, because for that reason I do pads. But yeah, it's I think, like, the way the UK is going and getting worse, I actually think it's something you've probably got to think about seriously doing.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about the state of the UK and safety issues and the government and taxation. So I mean, like, we might as well get into that. I was born in the UK. My family moved here when I was young, and then I moved back again for a few months in my early 20s. The last time I was there was, I think, 2018. I did a 200-mile-an-hour challenge at Bruntingthorpe down the airstrip with the Holy Trinity hypercar trio. And I haven't been back since. And it seems like government and policies around, like, even things around social media and free speech, I'm pretty sure that I've said enough things online on social media that they would lock me up, because I've seen them do it with people expressing views and opinions that go against a narrative that they don't want expressed on social media. I've seen these videos all over the place of the police just knocking on somebody's door, picking them up and locking them up. And some people have spent a good deal of time just for a social media post or a tweet or a Facebook or something like that. Let's talk about that first. What's the deal with the UK government and freedom of speech right now? Like, is this a place that I should avoid personally because of the views and opinions that I've expressed online? Like, is this something I could get picked up at passport control, do you think?
I don't know if you're going to get picked up at passport control, but I'll try and be as accurate as possible, Rich, because I don't want to be sensational just for the sake of it. The people who were getting locked up for social media posts were posting, pretty racist stuff at the height in the UK where it felt like there could be riots on the streets. Because what happened? There's a place in the UK called Southport. And a young man went and stabbed a load of young girls. Mm-hmm. 3 of them died. And they were just young girls dancing in a class, like dancing to Taylor Swift. And it was just a complete, it was the saddest thing you've ever seen. And the country got really, really angry. And the police don't have the same funding anymore. The police don't have many powers in the UK, really. In the UK, if you steal anything under £200, it's basically legal because it's not reported as a crime. Like sexual offences, like, sexual assault, there's like a 3% conviction rate. Same with some theft. Knife crimes up 80%. I'm talking kind of like London, but some areas are worse. And, this is not just Labour, because obviously the Conservatives were in for 14 years, but the UK's been on decline in many levels. So people were outraged and angry. And, the man who did the stabbing was black. And then we've got these rape gangs in the UK who are Asian, mostly Pakistani men. And so became this great division. And the far right was sort of pushed further right and labelled as racist. And the far left were kind of covering it up or not trying to have anything to do with anything. And then they blame people like Andrew Tate and the manosphere and all of this. And all this stuff's going on. So it got at a fever pitch where it really looked like there were riots. And basically the government kind of took control and took like quite quick powers, which I'm not sure was right. And they stuck a load of people in prison for social media posts when the prisons are full and they're letting out convicted criminals, Rich. This doesn't make any sense. And there's not this strong, firm leadership. We've got terrible immigration problems where we've got so many people coming in illegally. And this is, these people are put up in hotels and, we're forced that they get chess club and cooking lessons and PlayStations and all of this. All the while, taxes are going up and up and up. Our taxes are as high as they were nearly in the 70s when taxes were really high. You've got millionaires leaving all the time, going to Dubai where there's virtually no crime and virtually no tax. And that's just the start of it. And it's just got worse since Labour have come in the last year or 18 months. And a lot of people have had enough.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of the announcements that Starmer's government's made around protecting Ukraine's borders, and I've openly criticized them on Twitter and called them out. And I'm like, you can't protect your own borders from, dinghies coming across the channel daily, unloading African migrants that are undocumented, acting as refugees you know nothing about, but you're strongly invested in Ukraine and what's happening over there. It just doesn't make any sense to me that they don't care about domestic issues anymore. I mean, it's very similar here too in Canada, by the way. It's not like it's unique just to the UK. It's almost like we've got this globalist cabal of meetings going on that are just like, yeah, we need to flood and just let people in. It's like, it's almost like it's a uniform sort of strategy, with the exception of some of the US government with Trump. But I don't know, man. It's really bizarre. It's not the world that I grew up in, for sure.
No, like UK has really lost its culture and its identity. The point of having a country with borders is you say, we are these people and we have this culture. And so you protect that. And, if we want one global nation, fine, but that's not possible because we are all different. And we don't have a culture anymore in the UK.
No.
Like if anyone in the world thinks, okay, what is the UK? What is Great Britain? What do they stand for? Like that's just completely disappeared. And, the indigenous British people are the minority in a lot of places now. Now, I'm not against immigration. Many amazing entrepreneurs were immigrants. And, that moving through and you're taking your family to another country that gives you opportunity. Like London was the best place to go. People from all over the world came to London because
it was a financial hub for a long time.
Well, it's financial global center, great tax haven. But just, you could go there, you could work, you could earn a living, you could move your way up, you could look after your family, you could be safe. And that's what London was. And like, why can't we just have it whereby it's pretty clear? You want to come in, like add some value, work well, maybe start a business, whatever, come in. You want to come in illegally, you want to bring like your whole family and you don't want to work and you want to take all of our money and then you can't come in. Like, is that just not common sense? It's not even about race. It's just about common sense.
Yeah. I mean, it used to be that way. That was a list of requirements that you needed to meet to come to Canada. When my parents came here, it was like, you'd have to show that you can support yourself, you could speak English, that you were going to contribute to the economy. That's just the way that it was, but doesn't seem to be like that anymore. It's undocumented, free, encouraged. I think somewhere I saw on social media in the last week that you'd make more in the UK, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but more in the UK collecting the dole than you would working a minimum wage job. It was almost like a £2,000 or £3,000 a year difference.
Well, for some of my content, Rich, I'll walk around the streets of my city just interviewing people. And I've interviewed many of the homeless people because I always buy them sandwiches and coffee. And I ask them just straight up, and I get loads of hate for this on LinkedIn when I post about this, but fuck them. I ask them, why don't you get a job? And they say, there is no point, because they give me a house. And if I get a job, I lose my benefits and I'll earn less with a job than I will on the benefits. And they get a house, they get the benefits, and they professionally beg. And some of them earn 150 to 200 a day professionally begging, and they just move from place to place to place professionally begging. They've got their house, they've got their benefits. And, okay, look, there are, of course, Rich, some people who need support, and I want to support, veterans and people with genuine disability. I'm proud, that I've made many millions and I pay many millions in tax to help those people, but they're the people that need the help, and everyone else just needs to get a job. And by the way, unemployment's going up in the UK, and we need to build loads of houses because we have a massive housing shortage. So why doesn't someone with a brain just go, well, let's stop their benefits and let's train them to be a roofer. Let's stop their benefits and let's train them to be a brickie. Like, it's just what? But no, let's just keep pumping them all the money and then we'll keep putting up the taxes.
So they're acting as though they're homeless, even though they've got a roof over their head that they go to every night, but they'll go out in the streets begging to pull in some extra cash.
Yeah, and they get cash, which they're not going to the bank and declaring for tax purposes.
Yeah. Like I don't see any politicians doing anything to remedy that, though. Like, is there any movement to fix that?
Well, in the UK, there's a party called Reform. And I'm
friends. Nigel's party?
Yeah, it's Nigel's party. And I'm friends with Nigel and I know him. And I think he's got strength, vision. He's pro-business, small business, entrepreneurship. And, because some people are pro-business, but they're pro-Facebook and Google. But, you need to support the small businesses. There's 5 million small businesses in the UK. That's like something 55-60% of all the economy are those 5 million small businesses. So he's pro-small business. I think he's kind of anti-immigration. He's pro-low tax. So he's more, from the right side. And, like he's the best chance we've got by a long way. He's not going to be perfect. And Reform are a very young party. So they're like a little baby startup trying to fight against, the big corporations of Conservatives and Labour. But I think he's our best chance.
Did they win any seats in the last election?
Oh, they've been kicking ass. Like Labour really? Are like the lowest in all popularity, and yeah, they've been smashing it. Yeah,
because I mean, we have a very similar parliamentary system here, but how many seats did Nigel's party take?
I don't know off the top of my head, okay. But yeah, I mean, we don't have a general election. I think for another 4 years.
Okay, but his party's been around at the last one.
Yeah, I mean, shall I grok it? Does it matter? Do you want to?
I was just about to do it, so let's see who gets that answer first. How many seats did Nigel Farage? Because I find this fascinating, because we have a party here called the People's Party with a similar kind of guy. His name's Max Bernier, and his party took no seats in the last election whatsoever. In the 2024 UK general election, Nigel Farage's Reform Party won 5 seats in the House of Commons. Okay, good. So,
yeah, because we have this first past the post system here, as opposed to proportional representation. So it favors the 2 incumbent parties because you can get loads of votes, but not, really win any seats. And like,
I mean, 5 seats in the House of Commons at least gives them a voice during these moments where they're speaking to the House Speaker. But in Canada, like, we saw the Liberal Party dominate the last election with Mark Carney taking it. He stepped up when Justin Trudeau stepped down,
right?
And they just dominated. The Liberals dominated again. You hear people complaining all the time about high taxation, immigration policies that they don't like, blah blah blah, sort of stuff. Very, very similar narrative, but they never win any seats in the House of Commons.
Yeah. Well, it's just with the first past the post system, it's just so hard to sort of break or crack in. So we had a recent opinion poll, which obviously it's not an election, but and Reform polled at 26%, Labour 24%, and Conservative 16%. Bearing in mind, Labour and Conservatives are like 200-year-old parties, and Reform are like what, 15? I don't know, 20-year-old party. That's like, it's seismic, I think.
The Conservative Party, is it like Liberal light in the UK now?
How do you mean?
Well, I would call the Conservative Party here in Canada, with Pierre Poilievre as their leader, more of a Liberal light party, right? So they lean more left than they do conservative.
Right. So Conservatives are traditionally supposed to be low tax, growth, pro business, and so they're supposed to be right. And they've just become so left over the years that we don't really have a right party of the main 2.
So that's Nigel's gig then. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So, and safety in the UK, you've talked about knife crimes, obviously. Is that something that's gotten considerably worse over the years, as you've seen it?
Yeah. So in London, knife crimes up 80% since 2019.
80% since 2019.
Yeah, which feels like a lot. And I try when I look for statistics not to just look for something that backs my own ideas up. So I dismiss some things that I don't think are credible. But there's a people are getting, like, machetes are I wouldn't say they're common every day, Rich, but it's quite common now in the UK to see people with machetes. And that's obviously a sign. Some poor 14-year-old lad just got macheted to death randomly by someone who was just off it. Obviously, everyone's getting their mobile phones nicked. In like the you see, one thing, I don't know about you, Rich, but I worked fucking hard. And I've been an entrepreneur 20 years, and I still work fucking hard. And I've paid millions and millions in taxes. And I employ 100 people as we speak. And I've got, 1,350 tenants? I do my fucking bit. And I bought a really nice house on the nice street because I want to be safe and I want my kids to be able to play in the garden. And they go and fill the hotel at the end of my street with 135 asylum seekers. Like you said, many, I'm not saying all, but many probably undocumented. And then you go to London and you think, I'm going to stay somewhere nice. So I've done some speaking events at the Mandarin Hotel, stay in the tower opposite. And outside the Park Tower was where Blue Stevens, a 25-year-old father, got knifed to death in front of his, I think, wife or girlfriend and family for his Rolex. What the fuck?
Like, and what's your strategy to deal with that? Do they have a strategy, or?
Well, in London? No, I mean, the mayor didn't even tweet about it. He just said, we're going to make more youth clubs. How the fuck are youth clubs going to stop knife crime? What stops knife crime is, when people nick a sandwich. So I was in Costa Coffee, which is a big chain in the UK. Yeah. And someone who looked homeless, but I couldn't say for sure, came in, just nicked, literally just took everything. I'll have the sandwich, I'll have the drink, I'll have the crisps, and just nicked it. and left. And I was like a bit stunned. And I said, what happened? Oh, we're told not to do anything about that. Now I get it, because why would someone serving a barista want to put their life in danger? But they're told to do nothing about it. They can steal for free. And if it's not over 200 quid, it's not even a crime. So theft is legal. Now, Mayor Giuliani completely turned New York around, because he stopped all the petty crime right at the grassroots. A crime is a crime. And you go to Dubai and you nick a Rolex, you could be 20 years in prison. Like, it could be a lot worse than that. You're not nicking a Rolex because you know the consequences. And there are no consequences, and we have weak leadership. And that's the problem in the UK. Well, one of.
You had alluded earlier to the high tax rates in the UK. I found them to be some of the highest in the world. I mean, I would probably argue that the taxes upon taxes we have in Canada might actually be higher than what you guys are paying. But I've seen you on social media mention many times that you're fed up with it. It's too much. You see a lot of multimillionaires leaving the country, taking their bag of gold with them and sort of setting up shop somewhere else. I've seen the same thing here. Like, I've seen a lot of my friends personally that were members of Entrepreneurs Org in Toronto, other networks that I'm a part of, that just, they had a location independent business. They didn't have brick and mortar to service. They could run it from anywhere in the world. And they just packed up and they left. And I don't blame them. I mean, I would have left a long time ago as well if I didn't have family responsibilities here. But are you looking for an exit? Like, I know you've got a family there. What's your plan of dealing with the high tax rates? Because it's like, the thing that frustrates the crap out of me is they just take it from you and they go and spend it on things that you don't agree with.
Yeah, I mean, we don't have a choice of where our tax goes. And in the UK, I think 3 of our prime ministers, we didn't have a choice even in voting for them, because they were voted by the incumbent party. Mm-hmm. So we have no choice or influence on where our money goes. In the UK, the NHS, which used to be a pretty good system, to be honest, is absolutely broken. And it's just a bottomless money pit that they keep pumping money into. Yeah. So here's the problem. So you have to pay for healthcare twice. You pay for the NHS, you can't get in, so then you have to pay private.
Private, yeah.
And they just put a 20% tax on private schools, and they gave private schools business rates. Now, obviously, if you aspire to do well, one of the things you want to do is look after your children and give them a really good education, because that's one of the most important things. So you put them in private school, and they've basically stuck a 25% tax. Like, surely the worst place to tax is educating our children. So it gets worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. And I'm not planning to leave yet, Rich. But one thing they're talking about here in the UK to add on to all of this, and by the way, I haven't told you anywhere near all of them, is a wealth tax. And if they impose a wealth tax, that might be the straw that breaks the camel's back. Because, you're going to have to report your net worth, however regularly. Do you know what? I've got 100 staff. At least 15 of them, Rich, I have to employ for the bureaucracy I have to go through to file all of my accounts for all the taxes that I pay. And by the way, if they were just simple, oh, Rob, here's 25% tax on everything you earn, I would just pay it. I'd pay it with a smile. I'd be grateful. I need one admin person to manage that. So my entrepreneur friends have all left. They said, I've left because it's 20% VAT, 25% corporation tax, 45% income tax, 15% national insurance. And then when you get the little bit that's left, there's sales taxes on top of that. The inheritance taxes are crazy. Stamp duty to buy a house on a nice house is 12%. Buy £1 million house, which is not a lot of money nowadays. It's 120 grand. It's a year's salary. And it's just freaking everywhere. It's like bloody Bonnie Blue with all of her men. It's just fucking everywhere. The reason I'm not ready to go, Rich, is my parents are aging, and I'm not going to be selfish and get a phone call when I'm in Dubai saying your dad's passed away. I can't do it. It's not the right priority for me. So instead, Rich, I'm just going to get a load of good accountants and a load of good lawyers, and I'm going to figure out what the fuck I can do.
Yeah. life hands you lemons, you make some lemonade, I guess. It's yeah, the taxes and the taxes and the taxes, and they still can't seem to manage the money. You know what I mean? It's like, and people still vote for those same policies. The thing that blew me away here in Canada is the Conservative Party offered a somewhat conservative platform, right? So they said, we're going to lower your income tax, which will save you an average of $2,000 a year. Not a huge savings, but significant enough that it would be meaningful to the vast majority of the population that's like middle class. And then they also said, we're going to remove the GST on the purchase of a new home under $1 million. The GST here is 13%. So $1 million home is $130,000. That's a meaningful savings. People still voted for the Liberal Party, right? To me, that's just idiocracy on idiocracy, right? It's like, how can you be so thick to go and vote for these policies that the Liberals want to impose, which is climate hysteria and mass immigration? And the other thing that never really made a lot of sense in Canada to me, Rob, we're a vast country with huge amounts of natural resources, minerals, lumber, fresh water. You go right down the list, we've got it, right? Second largest country in the world next to Russia. We've got vast quantities of natural resources. Dubai's just got it like oil. And they managed to figure it out with making a low tax haven for commerce to attract people to. Canada just can't get their act together. And it's like they just keep doing things over and over again just to tick people off, and people just keep leaving. And I've just seen it for years now. But I'm in the same boat, man. It's like you have obligations, you've got some anchors, tying you down. There's only so much that you can do. It's expensive, but you do it. You do it. Talk to me about cars. Sorry, go ahead.
One thing to add here, Rich, is I am moaning a lot because I'm a person I have some influence, and I've got a good following. And
is it moaning though?
Well, no. This is what I was going to point. I kind of feel like I think it's wrong, and I think we should speak out about what we think is wrong. Otherwise, what will we become? I think I have some social responsibility. I run a real business that I have run for 20 years that makes many millions of pounds. So I think I've got some experience. But I am also in a position where I can move if I have to, and I can just travel a lot more and be here a lot less. So I think if anyone's watching and they agree with some of the things we're saying, Rich, but they don't have that mobility, that's your responsibility. If you build yourself some good wealth, then that gives you mobility. Because, there's been times in the past, and there's talk about it in the future of, national service and all this. Fuck that. I'm not fighting for this country, Rich. So if they put a ridiculous wealth tax, or they expect me to fight for this country, nah, I'll take my whole fucking family and I'll be gone.
Yeah, people want you to sacrifice and fight, don't they?
Yeah, that's okay if you're fighting for something that you believe in.
Yeah, I'll
fight for something that I believe in.
That you can win at least. Like, doesn't it make sense that you've got a fighting chance of actually winning or improving? And it's like, to me, I just look around and said, right, well, you lot voted for high taxes and climate hysteria and more wokeness. So, you've made your call. I've got nothing to fight for. I'll just kick my feet up and let it burn down, and I'll figure out, the best way to manage my life around that, or, plan my exit when the time's appropriate for it. And I think that's all that you can do. People want guys like you to stand up and fight and really do something to, like improve stuff for them. But they don't do shit with the next fucking election. They'll just vote for the same idiot that causes same levels of havoc and chaos that, that they live in today, which is just so bizarre to me. People aren't mad enough. You know what I mean? Like, people lost their fucking mind 100 odd years ago when the British imposed a tax on tea, Boston, tea, the fucking havoc that they had back then. I don't know if the story, but they lost their mind. I don't know. I think it was like 1%. They lost their ever-loving mind and revolted over that. But 40, 50% taxes on taxes, more taxes on taxes.
Yeah, I don't know.
We're fine with that.
But I think a lot of it links back to if you speak out about it, you might be worried about being cancelled, or you might be worried about going to prison for a social media post.
Sure.
So what's that called? That's called communism.
Yeah. Anyway, talking about cars, man, you're a big petrol head, yeah?
I have a few. I think 8. Not as many as Andrew, but yeah, I have a few cars. Yeah.
Yeah, well, eight cars in the UK is probably the equivalent of 50 cars where Andrew lives. But yeah, talk to me about your passion for cars, because I know it's expensive to buy and maintain and own them in the UK with all the taxes and everything. But what have you got?
Well, when I was, I don't know, 6, my dad got me working in his pub, and I loved it. And I didn't like school, and I really liked working in my dad's pub. And he used to help get me to pour the pints and empty the pinball and the slot machines and count all the money and bag it all up. And I just say, Dad, when can I work? When can I work? When can I work? And he'd pay me £1 a week. And there was a local shop that had pictures on that you could buy for £1 of all the nice cars. Back then it was like Ferrari Testarossa.
Yeah.
I think it was the Lamborghini Countach that was the one at the time.
The white one with the phone dial wheels with the black background.
Yes, I think so. Yeah.
I had the same poster. Yeah.
Right. and so I would work for these, not get given them by my parents. So I'd do a week's work to put them up on my walls. There was a Corvette and all these cars. And then, I had 20 years in between of dicking about and not really knowing what I wanted to do with my life, and going to university. What a fucking waste of time and money that was. Mm-hmm. And then finally, when I was 26, 27, I started my own business. And I always said to myself, by the time I'm 30, I'm going to get a Ferrari. That was like a driver for me. And I became a millionaire just before age 31. So it was like millionaire and Ferrari age 30. And I missed it by a few months, but I've forgiven myself for that. So the first Ferrari I bought was a 430 Spider, which I think I think it looks like a lovely car. I'd probably have it back. I sold it. I paid 75 for it. I sold it for 78 5 years later. So I didn't do too bad. It was the obviously the Spider, the convertible. And then after that, once you
manual or the F1?
No, the H-gate manual gearbox. I think that's
the better one.
Way better. Yeah, and those early F1 gearboxes, they're temperamental.
For shit, yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, and then that was after that, I was like, I can't not have nice cars now. So I bought the Ferrari Testarossa. So I've got, it's 20,000 miles. This is in really good nick, and I bought that because that was the first car I put on my wall. So that was like, I've arrived. I have a Lamborghini.
What you thought it would be? Was it like meeting your hero, or was it disappointing?
If you mean to drive. It's the worst. It's probably the worst car I've ever driven. It's like driving a tractor, because I had a 1989 Porsche 911 Turbo in Guards. Is it? Yeah, Guards red with the Fuchs alloys. Exactly how it should be. And that thing was really nice to drive, smooth. For a car of that age, really great. The Testarossa is like a tractor. The steering is so hard. But I didn't really care. Like when they're really shit to drive, I just think it's really, I would probably drive at 50 miles an hour in that car in a 70 on purpose. I'd drive 20 miles an hour in a 30 because it's just that kind of car. And I look at it and I love it. And it's gone up a fair amount in value since we bought it, which I don't want to be an idiot when I buy cars. I don't want to buy a 500 grand car that goes down to 200 grand in 5 years. It's a bit of a sport in buying it well. Mm-hmm. So no, it's a terrible drive. I mean, it's a beautiful car. It's a terrible drive. I have the Lamborghini Aventador, which I'll probably keep forever. I'm not that blown away by the Revuelto. It doesn't sound as good in my opinion. The looks are okay, but I don't like it as much. So I didn't trade up. I would have done if I really loved it. I don't like the SVJs because I think they're like, when you were 17 and you passed your test in the UK, you'd get like a Vauxhall Nova, and then you'd spend a few £100 on a big exhaust. You'd lower it. You'd put a spoiler on it to make it look better. And I think that's what the SVJ looks like on the Aventador. I prefer the pure Aventador. I don't like filler. I don't like big lips. I like natural beauty. So I stuck with the Aventador. I have an Aston Martin DBS, which actually I just use as my run around daily.
Is that like the Casino Royale version?
It's the latest version.
Oh, the new one,
So,
not the
yeah.
Daniel
So
Craig
no,
one.
it's not. It's the
Okay.
latest version. Probably I mean, if you took a poll across everyone, I reckon the sexiest car on the planet would be voted in as a DBS. Women love it, men love it. So I mean, obviously it's subjective.
I find that most people gravitate at car shows and parking lots and gas stations to the Lambos for some reason. It doesn't matter what Lambo it is. If it looks like a Lambo, they just McLarens, they
Yeah.
haven't got a clue. They look at it and they're like, "What's that?" But the Lambos,
Yeah.
because of the badge, they just know.
Yeah, I think you're right. I probably I would say maybe every 2 weeks I get a request to take a 16-year-old for their first prom, and it's always the Lambo. It's never any other car. And I think I like to do that because I think it's nice to do. So yeah, I have an aerial atom, which I'm sure you know what that is. That's
lucky you. You can't get those here.
Yeah, well, I mean, I only paid 75 grand for mine, and it's like 0 to 60 in about a millisecond.
Is that the supercharged Honda or the V8?
Yeah, the supercharged VTEC engine. What is it? 300 horsepower in half a ton of car.
Does it really distort your face like it did with Clarkson?
Yeah, it does. Yeah, and the intake screams because it's got the air intake here, and you can hear it sucking in when you change the gear, and it just screams.
So you need a helmet then.
Yeah. You're supposed to wear a helmet. Yeah. Not the newest 911 Turbo S. Kind of like more just sort of for the all-rounder car.
Yeah, I got one of those now.
Yeah. What about you? Did we have a discussion about McLaren? Because I really didn't rate McLaren. I think.
I think one of the things you brought up when we spoke a few years ago was that you thought that the reliability and the ownership experience was shit. And I had mine for 3 years, maybe going on 4. I put 38,000 kilometers on it because I do a lot of rallies. Like I do a lot of driving. We usually drive down to the States. We go down through the Appalachian Mountains. There's some beautiful roads on there. It's probably the equivalent of you guys going to like, Switzerland or Northern Italy or whatever. And I never had any mechanical issues, but I got a lot of warning lights for just bullshit. Like it never stopped you from driving the car. It was, I don't know, the arrow needed to get recalibrated or something like that. A friend of mine's got a 750 that he just took on a rally last week, and he's never had a warning light on it once. So they've improved every aspect of the car completely. I drove it. It's phenomenal. I was just blown away because I've got a 992 turbo with a tune on it, and it's just as fast as a 750. Like we did a half-mile race down the airstrip side by side, basically. But the 750 is just a much more exhilarating car to drive. And he's had no issues with it whatsoever. So it seems like they fixed every metric on that car completely. So that's very high up on the list for me for my next rally car after I get rid of the 992 turbo.
Right. Yeah. I don't know if I'm ever going to own a McLaren. Who knows? Maybe.
Yeah, honestly, man, like if you haven't driven a 750 or a 765 LT, just take it out for a day or so and have a go with it. And I think you'll probably change your mind. They're fantastic cars.
Yeah.
Some
I mean, they're good value as well, aren't they? They drop quite a lot. So you can a used one.
Well, buy it used. I mean, you're probably not going to make any money out of it. You're probably going to lose some money for sure. I mean, if you want it to retain value, then get a low production Porsche like a GT3 RS or something like that. But nothing drives like a McLaren Super Series. Like the 750 is a phenomenal automobile. I fell in love with it all over again. Like my friend's a race car driver basically, and I had him in the passenger seat, and I had him shitting in the passenger seat when I was driving it, when I was going on the on ramps and the off ramps. And it's just like, it drove like my 720, but it just had that little bit more. It was like McLaren turned the dial up from a 10 to like an 11 and gave you just a tiny bit more in every area.
Yeah.
Phenomenal car. I definitely recommend taking one out.
Yeah. All right. Maybe I'll try.
Yeah. What's your favorite of the bunch? Like if you could just have one.
Like I'm 46, Rich. So you're probably going to hate me for this, and when you might not talk to me again. I'd probably have my Audi RS Q8.
Really? Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I got the Vorsprung edition paid a little over 100 grand for it.
Yeah.
I think they're better than the Urus. And if you know, obviously they're not race cars, but they're fast. And you can do absolutely anything and everything with that. It's the most comfortable car I've never had a car with so many options on it that can do everything. I can take my son to golf, can do whatever I want. My son doesn't like all the cars. He's a bit like, oh, Dad, you're flexing.
Too flash.
Yeah, he doesn't like it. So like that.
Do you get embarrassed when you take him to school in one of the supercars?
He won't let me. He won't have it.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah, I'd have loved it. My dad had shit cars and I was embarrassed. And now I've got nice cars and he's embarrassed.
I'm the same. I would have loved if my old man took me to school or picked me up from school in a nice car. My daughter's embarrassed by the flash cars.
Yeah.
I don't get it. I just don't get it. I don't know. There's this new thing today with teenagers where they want to blend in or they don't want to stand out or whatever.
Yeah.
I don't get it. Right. So the RSQ8, that's interesting.
That is a really underrated car.
What is a car that you have your eye on that you haven't got yet that you'd like to get your hands on?
Well, I have a problem with garage space, Rich. So the first thing I should do is get a bigger garage. Like let's be realistic.
Right, so let's say you've got a bigger garage, or you can trade one out.
Well, I will. I have got a plan to do something. I plan because we've got 3 office buildings here, and we own 2 of them. And we rent one of them just because we couldn't buy, because they're all near each other. And the one that we rent has my sales team in it. So it's about 30-ish people in there of my sales team. And a lot of them are young lads. So I'm going to keep my eye out and I'm going to buy a sort of a semi-industrial unit and I'm going to build a glass mezzanine for all my sales staff. And then I'm going to have all my cars at the bottom. Because I reckon that might just get them selling more if they can see all my cars underneath their offices. So
yeah,
that's in the plan. So I'm going to get I know I'm going to get this. We're just lining it up at the moment. A 355 Spider.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah, because like in the UK, you'll pay just under 100,000 for them. And I interviewed a guy called Tom Hartley Jr. who sells, like he sold Bernie Ecclestone's collection. He's got like the most amount of F40s and rare cars. He's like the top classic car guy, probably in the UK. And he's got, I think 7 or 8 355s. And he says, Rob, these are going to go up. These are the next ones. You need to get a 355. So he reckons they're really nice to drive. I've
driven one. They're not, I mean, I had one for a day and I mean, they're not fast.
Well, no, they're actually
they sound amazing.
They're terribly slow. You're right that they are. They're very underpowered for what they should be.
They make a lot of noise and racket for the speed that they pull. It's
right. Yeah. But
so they're not fast, but I mean, you wouldn't expect it to be fast being a 90s car.
No, exactly. You don't buy them for that. And I just cruise around in them. But yeah, I'm going to get one. I'm getting one. So
or a coupe.
I'll get a convertible. Yeah, I actually might get the is it the GTS? Where you could the hard roof.
Those ones are quite a bit more rare.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's definitely the next one.
Nice.
And I'm probably going to get I'm 99% sure on this as well. I'm probably going to get a Bentley Mulsanne.
Nice car. What do you think of these resto mod companies like Singer and stuff like that?
No.
I don't know, man. I saw Singer at an automotive exhibit last fall, and it was just beautiful. It was like a piece of art. I mean, it's $1 million plus car, and it's older tech, but they modernize everything on it. It looks beautiful as hell.
So, I've been buying property for 20 years, Rich, and we're always trying to get property as cheap as possible, as you would. It's an asset.
Of course.
We're always trying to add value, make sure we've got really good equity in it. So it's like almost against my business religion to way overpay for something that I think is quite highly likely to drop half in value, even if I can afford it, which I can. It just like it's just I can't do it. It's like there's like a malfunction in me, and I think a lot of these resto mods, I just think they're just going to drop a lot. I think.
Did you ever ride motorcycles?
No. Well, yes, when I was 17, nearly killed myself and then never did after that.
Okay. Have you had a go in a Porsche Spider RS yet? I'm curious
No.
if you've driven one.
No.
Okay. I got one last summer, and I drive that more than I drive the turbo now. It's definitely not as comfortable because it's got the carbon bucket seats, and it's not as fast, but it's just raw. And I was talking to somebody about it the other day, and I was trying to explain the feel of it. And it's like a sport bike without a helmet. Like you sit in this thing, it's a race car engine because it's got the GT3 motor in it, and you have this induction from the intakes just over your shoulder, probably similar to the Ariel Atom, but it's naturally aspirated. It just sounds incredible. It's a very, very raw experience.
Right. Okay. I've not driven that.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
What about rallies? You ever do rallies? You ever do like road trips with the cars, or are they just strictly for weekend drives to the pub or something?
Yeah, just really weekend drives. I haven't, and I've been invited to some, and I think I'm going to get myself out and about more. I don't track them. I track someone else's car, ruin someone else's tires and brakes, not mine. But not really. And I think I'm going to change that, Rich. Yeah,
I find tracking kind of boring because you're doing circles all day long. But the road tripping part to me is just exciting as hell. Like I could do it all day, every day. It's that much fun for me.
Yeah.
If you get an opportunity to go out in a rally with a bunch of good guys that know how to drive, and you have a good fast car, then you have a blast. But you have to get kitted out properly with radio so you can communicate for passing, radar detectors, like all the stuff, because you're not doing the speed limit. You're not going out for Sunday drive doing 20 and a 30. You're doing usually considerably more.
Yeah.
But it's rather safe because you're traveling with a large group, right? So it's like, if the police ever get involved, it's like, there's ways to sort of talk yourself out of it.
Yeah. All right.
It's really the catch. What else do I have here? We got closer. Oh, we can rip through an hour. You've got children, right? I think you've got son and daughter.
Yeah.
What is the difference that you found in raising boys versus girls? I'd love to hear your perspective on that as a father.
Yeah. So, I don't know if my answer is going to be something that people can take on, but I'll try.
Okay.
So, like I think any dad who's got a daughter, I was maybe concerned, when she gets to 15, 16, and how's she going to be treated by boys and men. But my daughter is a very strong character. She's got a lot of sass. And quite quickly, I realized, while she's going to get her heart broken and she's going to have things happen to her in life, she's probably going to be okay because she's just strong. So I sort of didn't feel that over need to protect her. My son has quite a serious nut allergy, and he has to be very careful. And so he's quite an anxious person, and he is unbelievably empathetic, unbelievably good at reading people, but, very introverted. And he was probably in the top 5 best golfers in the world, age 5, 6. We just did it every day. And like, I had an amazing time, and I really pushed that. I probably pushed it a bit hard, if I'm honest, Rich. But I realized, with my wife and my family's help, sort of at age 7, that he didn't like the competitions. He didn't like the pressure. He was an anxious person, and that wasn't probably his calling. It was probably more me trying to make it something for him. So I really backed off. And at first I sort of felt a bit sad about that, or maybe resented people around me who were trying to get me to back off, but I backed off. And so what I think I've learned about parenting is, 1, your kids are very different. 2, they have their own innate personality. I remember going through that stage where, everything's nurture, not nature, and you can become anything you want to be. And I think you can, but when my kids were literally weeks old, you could see personalities form that were not nurture because they were too young. So your kids will have their own personalities. And you'll have expectations of how you should raise your daughter and your son, and that will probably be disrupted and blown out of the window. You'll try and impose things on them which they won't necessarily like or want to be. And I think if you love them, you'll go through that journey and you'll embrace more who they are more than who you want them to be. And that was a big shift for me. And then as they got a bit older, the biggest lesson I had was they do not listen to anything you say, but they watch everything you do. So I don't really tell them what to do anymore over and above the necessary things. I try and behave in a way that I think would inspire them. So I train a lot so my son can see that. I've never had an argument with my wife in front of my children, and she's equally responsible for that. And I treat her really well without, being a pushover. And I think that's really important. So I think I hopefully feel like I'm teaching my son to have a healthy respect for women. I am the only thing I'm forcing my son to do, but I'll do it in a way that hopefully is good, is boxing and Krav Maga, because I just think that that's what I have to arm them with. I've brought them into the business. They've worked for me a fair bit. The more you push anything on them, the less they want to do it. I'd love them to get involved in the business, but I'll love them no matter what they want to do. And that's my summary of my parenting journey. And I've known many very smart people who've given advice, and it just doesn't work because parenting is such a unique and individual thing.
What do you think of Andrew Tate's approach to parenting?
Right. So I had a bit of a ding dong with him on the last show about this, because I said, well, what if your daughter ends up being like Bonnie Blue? Oh, she won't. I said, well, what if? Oh, she won't. Oh, well, what if? Well, if they defy me on the table, then they will get my wrath. And I just thought, he's clearly got a lot of young kids because he has not got a lot of parenting experience. And I'll tell you what will happen, because this is a universal law. Everything that Andrew Tate doesn't want his kids to do, they'll do to defy him. They'll do because of the universal law of balance. I remember a mentor of mine, Dr. John DeMartini. He said, if you're proud at work, your wife will humiliate you at home. If you're struggling out in the real world, your wife will support you at home, because you have the natural balance and order. So the more you push and impose and control someone, the more the opposite traits you'll get presented to teach you to love that part of them and yourself. So Andrew Tate's going to have fucking problems with his daughters. I guarantee you it, Rich.
Well, it sounds like he's already got problems with some of his kids' moms not complying with his wishes because they're stuck in council estates versus the ones that get the Bentleys and the mansions.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he's not going to be able to be a very hands-on parent with all these children in all these places around the world. And, you can have values and everything, Rich, but they also need your time. And, I asked Andrew, a few times about love and what love is and what does love mean. And, he says to protect and provide. But your children need to feel your love. And that's not all discipline. They need, like my dad, I think he told me he loved me once, maybe twice. And Rich, it's the best memories of my dad. And you can't just be hard. Everyone needs love, and they need support as much as they need challenge. Now, if you've got a brilliant partner, my wife is just the best mum in the world, and she does all the support, so I can do a bit of the challenge. But just like I'm going to enjoy talking to Andrew in 10 years, because everything he thinks his kids are never going to do because he wouldn't have any of it, they're going to fucking do it.
Yeah, that'll be interesting to see unfold over time. I think they're all.
Do you agree with me on that? Do you think he's going to have a challenge with them?
Like you said, I find him to be a very performative talker. You know what I mean? Like there's I find him a little bit different privately versus his public sort of persona, especially over the years as he sort of developed it and built it up a little bit. I think he's a lot nicer than people give him credit for, and he's Clever for sure, but I don't know that I don't know, man. I mean, like, we'll see. Like, is there a perfect parenting strategy? Is there the best way? Like, I certainly think that you have to treat boys different from girls. I think boys have to be encouraged and guided to create value for themselves, because it's expected of them when they become men to be useful, to provide value to the world. It's what makes them attractive to women as well. Whereas for women, it's almost opposite and counter, where it's like, you need to preserve your value. You need to maintain some level of privacy. Like, I don't get the whole notion of promiscuity today, you know, with girls just running around having a good time and 1,000 guy challenges or whatever they happen to be. I think that's very harmful to women. But yeah, it's a different narrative, I think, for boys and girls. Is, you know, preserve the value for girls and create value for boys, and it's a different kind of value. You know, like, value that make men valuable, that turn boys into men, is different from what women need to do, I think. And it's different conversations, a different set of boundaries, a different set of rules that you're going to apply to those kids, I think. And he takes it to like an extreme performative level, where it's like, you know, my boys' names will be known. The entire MMA card will be Tate's. You know, and that's an ambitious story to tell yourself. And I'm sure between Andrew and Tristan, they'll probably bang out a whole bunch of sons and might actually accomplish that goal. But somewhere along the lines, and I think I asked him this once about parenting, you know, like, what would you do if she's not going to obey you or comply with your wishes, sort of thing? And he's just like, well, she can fuck off then, basically. I'm not gonna have anything to do with her, and I've not put all my eggs in one basket, right? You know, like, they're spread out, sort of thing. And I don't know, I guess we'll see. Like, you know, maybe that's a winning strategy. I don't know.
Well, we'll see is always a wise statement, isn't it? We will see.
Yeah. Yeah, time does, you know, it's a truth teller. You know, I know he got, you know, criticized and incarcerated for his, you know, Playboy lifestyle. I think it's more so Tristan than Andrew. I think he said Tristan was more of the Playboy, but, you know, I've always known that the truth or evidence, as it happens to be, tends to find its way to you over time. You know, if you've been misrepresented, or if your personality's been lied about, or if they've accused you of something that you've never done, at some point, whether it comes from that individual or somebody that knows the individual, that knows the truth or has evidence of it, and he says he has some evidence, it'd be interesting to see what that looks like. But, you know, it's one of those things, like, you know, they accuse him of doing a whole bunch of stuff, and people would ask, well, what do you think he's done? It's like, I don't know. Let's see. You know, let's see what ends up happening. You know, I like the guy, and I do a rally with him and have a, you know, a laugh with him. I'd rather sit down and have dinner with Andrew Tate than Bonnie Blue, to be honest with you. I think it's a much more interesting conversation. We'll have a lot more in common. But yeah, we'll see, I guess.
We'll see.
Yeah. So we talked about parenting. Let's talk about wealth, because men still want to create life-changing money. In your opinion, what do you think the best way is for men to go out there and put a little bit of a dent in the universe for themselves?
Okay, so the first thing I'll say is, probably the most important thing you can do for your freedom is to get rich. Yeah, maybe the most important thing you can do for your life is to be healthy. You know, have a
what does rich mean to you? Like, what does that number look like?
Enough money to be able to say no. They lock me down, I say no. They want me to stick needles in my arms, I say no.
Okay.
That, and because here's the thing, I used to think getting rich was about being able to say yes to everything and do anything I want. But now, with our freedoms being potentially infringed, it's say no. So if they debank me, say fuck you to the banks then. That's being rich, is being able to say no, and having enough either recurring income or diverse income or decentralized income or private income that you can, no, I'm not going to enlist. No, I'm not going to pay 80% tax. I've got enough money to go to Dubai and take my family with me. That is I believe, the modern rich. rich. It used to be do what you want when you want, where you want, with who you want. That used to be 20 years ago. It used to be about passive or recurring income. But the world has changed. And so it's, it's not 100 grand a year. That's nothing anymore. It's definitely not in the UK or Canada. And $1 million is just not much money anymore. It doesn't go very far. Mm-hmm. So, I think you probably need around 10 million liquid. You probably need a net worth of 20 million plus if you want that attractiveness in, females and other people. Because, by the way, attractiveness, Rich, isn't just females. It's business partners, it's other men, it's, connections, it's being able to get doors open, it's being able to get really good guests on podcasts. It's all of that as well. So, your health and your fitness makes you look attractive, but then your wealth makes you look attractive. So they're the two most important things you can probably do in your life. So I reckon 10 million liquid and 20 million net worth is kind of what you need, but you've got to keep banging it up because inflation will wipe it down over time. Mm-hmm. So that, and I define wealth as being able to say no to the things you don't want to do. And then probably, like I had to do it the old school way, Rich. I've got 345 rental properties that I own. I've got, tens of thousands of square foot of offices with 100 staff in it. Now, information business, AI probably, having global customers, leveraging social media and being a creator so you can find all your customers without having to spend loads of money on media buying or ads. These are the modern ways. And the great news is, no matter how shit your life is, if you can get on the internet, you've got a chance. The playing field, Rich, is so much more level than it used to be when you and I started. I'm not saying it's harder in some other areas. I'm not playing a violin, but the playing field to get in, you can get a website for a few dollars. You can get online for nothing. You can start creating content for not much. You can launch a membership site. I notice you're on school. Well, mm-hmm. I've got my own school, money.school. It's got 12,000 members. You can build that in no time on someone else's platform. That's the modern way to make money. And of course, you said it earlier, I think, Rich, it gives you mobility. It means you can move if your location isn't tied, to having a restaurant in a town where no one's going to that town anymore.
So information-based product that's location independent, that you can run from anywhere in the world while commanding an audience.
Yeah. And anyone can do that. 8-year-olds on YouTube do that.
The gatekeepers are gone. When we were younger men, you needed the permission of a publishing company to write a book. I've written a book that if the New York Times list accepted as a rankable book, because I self-published it, would be a New York Times bestseller. It's sold that many copies. You want to start your own TV show, you just upload to YouTube. I press the same button that you press, that Mr. Beast pressed, that the next guy that has no subscribers press. So yeah, I mean, like the great thing for younger guys today, and I keep telling them this, is like the gatekeepers have been removed. You want a radio show, a podcast, you want a TV show, you want to create content, blog, whatever it happens to be, like, pick your poison, develop a skill or some value, and then just give it away, and then, sell something to them. They say, what do they say? Give away the why, sell the how.
Yeah. Give away the what and the why. Yeah.
Do you have any other, like you're a big real estate guy. Would you recommend, men get into real estate at this point in their life? And I say men when I'm speaking, because it's like 95% of my audience, but
yeah. So I think one of the greatest ways to get rich for the long term and build vast wealth is to make your money in a business and park the profits into physical assets like real estate. Now, modern people are putting their money into gold and silver because they don't trust the government, or they're putting their money into Bitcoin or altcoins because they're younger or whatever. Mm-hmm. But if you imagine a triangle, you have capital. Well, you have income, capital, and equity. So it spells ICE. Income, capital, equity, and a triangle spells ICE. Bitcoin has no income. It has capital because it's what it's worth, but it has no equity. Equity is if you could buy it for 30% less than it's worth. You can't get equity in gold unless you can get it at spot price, and you're talking 3 or 4%. The stock market's got income and capital, but probably no equity. Pretty much the only two things you can buy that have income, capital, and equity are an existing business that you buy cheap or real estate. So, for example, my business partner and I, we're buying 2 properties. We'll develop them and add a load of value, but they were about £5 million each 5 years ago, and we're paying a little over 2.5 for both of them. So we're buying it 50% less than it was priced at 5 years ago. Now, it's not worth double, but it's worth more than we paid for it. So there's equity in it, which means, you know, I've bought it well, I could sell it tomorrow at a profit. It's going to go up in value. It's probably going to double every 12 to 15 years. So it's going to be 5 million, then 10 million, then 20 million, then 40 million. And real estate produces a really good income stream. And people don't realize that when they think about gold or Bitcoin or other stuff, they only have one of the 3 of ICE. The one major drawback of real estate for young men who want to be mobile is you can't carry your properties around the world with you. Mm-hmm. So what you've got to do is you've got to find a fixed location which has got good real estate rights. So the UK is one of the best legal systems in the world. That's got one thing going for it. So if you own the deeds of a property in the UK, you freaking own that, and no one, you know, the legal system is really good. So UK is good for that. UK also is an island. It's you know, way under supply of properties. It's got good long-term metrics for real estate. So you make your money in business, you park it and grow it in real estate, and you know, that's how I made my millions. Yeah.
So it sounds like you endorse that for younger men going forward. Like, it's still a profitable, good idea.
Well, I mean, Rich, look,
it's reality, a slower business to make money, though. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the answer to everything actually is it depends. Mm. So if you're 21 and you want to travel to 7 countries a year, you maybe want to wait maybe you don't want to buy it yet. But if you want to build an empire, like a fucking empire, like when you're 50 or 60, you know, it's like playing Monopoly and you dominate it and you own the whole board. Real estate's the only way. So it depends what you want. And I want an empire. I walk down my city. I have a 100 apartment block that we developed. We bought just the shop at the front with a load of empty space. We developed 4 flat floors above. It's 100 apartments, and it's 135,000 square foot. And it feels like I'm playing Monopoly. And I loved Monopoly, and I wanted to own the whole fucking board. So if that, like, so, you know, because you've got like sort of a lifestyle-y type person. A lifestyle-y type person probably doesn't want a load of real estate because it's probably a noose around their neck. They should have information businesses, membership sites. But then there's empire builders. You know, my friend Grant, you know, he's an empire builder, Grant Cardone. So it kind of depends what you are. But if you want to build an empire, real estate's it's the best asset class of them all, or big business.
That was a 20-year run for you, was it?
Yeah, I've been investing in real estate for 20 years, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Everybody that I know that's made like vast quantities of wealth in real estate has always bought, turned, churned, you know, it's always taken decades, if I can put it that way.
Well, I don't sell any
Bitcoin. Sorry?
I don't sell any of them either.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the other thing that I've heard too. You just don't really sell it unless it's a total dog.
Yeah.
You mentioned Bitcoin. You're not bullish on Bitcoin, or you're different?
I have Bitcoin. I don't have a massive amount of my overall net worth in Bitcoin. I probably will buy more. The thing with Bitcoin is everybody who loves Bitcoin is myopically, evangelically colorblind. Like, no one will criticize Michael Saylor. He is God and King. But I've never heard him say any downside about Bitcoin. Everything has downsides. I just said ICE, income, capital, equity. Bitcoin doesn't have income or equity. So everyone who talked about Bitcoin who's so bullish into Bitcoin cannot see the downsides. That's like going out on a date and falling in love with someone on the first date. I'm sorry, but you've been with them 6 years. You're divorcing the same person you fell in love with. So I'm not bullish in Bitcoin to the point where I can't see the downsides, because that would make me an idiot. But I have Bitcoin and I will buy more. But it's
Do you think it's going to go to 1 million like Saylor predicts?
I mean, you know, what it has on its side is scarcity, doesn't it? So it'll get to 1 million in the end if really no more is created. But how long and when? Well, no one can predict that, because not even Warren Buffett can predict what markets will do when they'll do them. Just that they'll do them.
Yeah.
It does concern me that some very, very smart people aren't as bullish on Bitcoin. And you know, you only need one small crack for everything to go wrong in Bitcoin. And Bitcoin's not been around very long.
If you could have dinner with 3 people, alive or dead, who would you choose to sit down at the table with?
I'd definitely have dinner with Michael Jackson. He would probably be the first one. My friend was his bodyguard. So I know a lot of intimate details about Michael that many people don't. I loved his music as a kid. He's obviously controversial. So he would probably be the first. The next would be the Queen, like one of the most amazing stoic leaders ever. I really like her mantra: never complain and never explain. It's not easy to do, and it's not easy to do for 6 decades. So I think she's a very strong stoic woman, and they don't make them like that anymore, Rich. So I would say the Queen would be second. Are you talking about people I like or people I'd find really fascinating?
Your choice. It's your dinner.
Okay, so Michael Jackson, I was a fan as a kid, really interesting. Queen, I admire. I'm going to pick, so therefore I'm going to have to pick someone else really fucking crazy, like maybe Hitler, or, you know, someone who is like a psychopath on another level, because I just want to know how their mind works. So yeah, maybe someone like that. Because, yeah, like I say this with humility, Rich, but, you know, many people who I'd like to have dinner with, I can or I have. So, I mean, Donald Trump would be fascinating. Yeah. I love Zlatan Ibrahimovic, but I just think he's cool. I love heavy metal, so I probably would want Trent Reznor of 9 Inch Nails. It would be cool. But like to have a really like, I can't even eat my food because this is bonkers. It'd have to be someone who'd murdered a lot of people.
Yeah, I think Hitler would have to be at the table for sure. He's an interesting, he's a character for sure. There's no question about it. I've noticed, the last year or so, a lot of people have been openly critical of Winston Churchill, saying that he was the real villain during the Second World War. Have you seen much of that?
I haven't, and of course, I don't know the reality. And I think we should all acknowledge what we don't know. And there's a lot more we don't know than we do know. Ray Dalio talks about that, and I really admire him for being honest about that. So I don't really know the deal with Winston Churchill. Here's what I do know. Obviously, he's English, so over here, it's going to be more good PR than bad PR. But, if you're the enemy of England at the time, when he was prime minister, of course, you're going to have something bad to say. The Great British Empire was brilliant, except if you were on the receiving end of colonization. So everything has upside and downside. When you're in that position, fighting wars, and you're a strong leader, then you're going to have as many enemies as you do allies. And yeah, I imagine there was some darkness to him, because there's darkness in all of us.
You mentioned the colonizer a bit, and I've heard that mentioned before by a lot of people with contempt. My dad served with the Royal Air Force and traveled around a lot of the world. Same thing with my uncle and a lot of my family from the UK. And it's like, I kept hearing stories about England going in, creating infrastructure, schools, sewage, hydroelectricity, rail, stuff like that, and they just sort of handed it all back to the country. Are you on the camp of like the quote unquote colonizers? Or did England do good for the world? And I guess is the question. Again,
I have very limited knowledge on that, and I wasn't there. But I imagine that there was benefits. I imagine we brought a lot of service and value and peace in some places that didn't have peace before. But I imagine we also were violent, because, you know, in order to have peace, you have to have violence, don't you? You cannot separate the two.
Violence is golden, as they say, right? What is your favorite book that you've read in the last decade?
Money by Rob Moore.
Good man. If it's not your book.
Yeah. The best book I've read. Books are all about where you're at the time.
They are, aren't they?
You know, the great thing I like about having long discussions is the longer you go, the more balanced and accurate and contextual and niched you can become. And you might have noticed that more and more of my answers have become, it depends, and maybe a bit more humble in the response, and me letting you know what I don't know, as opposed to just pretending I know everything about everything. So with books, I mean, when I was broke and I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, that was a brilliant book. If I read it now, it would be like reading a child's frickin' story. It would be nothing to me because it would be too basic. But that was the assets and liabilities, the cash flow quadrant, entrepreneur versus investor versus employee. That was a game changer. When I had a terrible money mindset, Secrets of the Millionaire Mind by Harv Eker and Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. They were amazing books. Now I use Grok and I walk every day and I ask it a load of things I don't know. Because, you know, when you get a book, well, other than my books, of course, which are rich with content, but you get a book and you're like, well, 2/3 of that isn't relevant and I have to wade through 12 hours. Now I just ask Grok anything I want about it, anything, and I could get 12 books consumed in a 90-minute walk.
Yeah, it's wild. AI is really something. I want to thank you for your time. Try and respect it. Keep it at 90 minutes. Where should people go to find you if they want to learn more about Rob Moore?
Well, I mean, if you search my name, Rob Moore, you'll find me on all socials. Ranting usually. If you're of nervous disposition or very left, you're either going to hate me or you're going to love to hate me. But if you want to make money and you want to be entrepreneurial and you want to sort your life out, I'm a pretty good guy to follow. Probably the best place to start, like the hub of which you can then sort of find all the stuff, is Money School. The link is money.school. And there's probably now a good few hundred hours of content in there to make, manage, and multiply money. And all the new stuff about AI, but also so the more fundamental concepts of building wealth and starting a business are in Money School.
Great. Thanks for joining me. We'll see you soon. All right, guys. If you enjoyed that podcast, make sure you visit my website at richcooper.ca to learn more about my courses, my book, The Unplugged Alpha, community, or booking me for private coaching. Also, if you are a Canadian with $15,000 or more of credit card debt and what you are doing right now isn't paying off the balances, then visit totaldebtfreedom.ca and hit get a free quote to see if you qualify to settle your credit card debt for less than you owe today over the next 48 months. Make sure you check out the top pinned comment on YouTube for all the links mentioned during the show. Peace.